This is 2019's first edition of CNN 10. Welcome to everyone watching worldwide and Happy New Year. I'm Carl Azus. CNN 10 is your source for objective explanations of current events. And this Thursday's show starts with a look at a planned withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. About 2,000 American troops are in the Middle Eastern country. Syria has been in the midst of a civil war since 2011, and members of the U.S. military were first deployed there in 2015 to help in the fight against the ISIS terrorist group. Last month, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that his administration was taking steps to pull all U.S. troops out of Syria. The statement reportedly came as a surprise to several American officials, and it appeared to lead to the resignation of U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis. The day after President Trump's plan was made public, Secretary Mattis sent him a letter that said the president has the right to a defense secretary whose views are better aligned with those of the commander-in-chief. President Trump has said that ISIS is mostly gone, that withdrawing U.S. troops from Syria would save lives and billions of dollars, and that it follows through on a campaign promise he made. Critics have said that ISIS terrorists could reemerge if U.S. forces leave Syria too soon, and that the withdrawal could cause more instability in the Middle Eastern country. At first, President Trump said the pullout would happen within 30 days, but the New York Times reported on Monday that the president had extended that time frame to 4 months. While debate over the U.S. role in Syria was taking place, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump made a surprise visit to another Middle Eastern country where U.S. troops are deployed. Their trip to Iraq took place the day after Christmas. Up next today, the U.S. stock market just wrapped up a wild year. There was extra reason for the applause on December 26th. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, an index of 30 significant stocks, had its biggest day in history, rising more than 1,000 points. This happened the same year as its biggest drop in history. The Dow closed down more than 1,100 points on February 5th. Overall, analysts say 2018 was the worst year for stocks since 2008, but it was also the year the Dow hit its all-time record high. So extreme volatility, major changes in stocks driven by everything from inflation fears and interest rate increases to rising wages. How are these swings felt on the trading floor?
Does the market excite me when it goes up or down? Yes. Am I a boisterous, loud, obnoxious guy? Absolutely. Do I have wild and crazy hair? Yes. Do I look like Einstein? Absolutely. Am I half as smart as him? By no means. If you ask anyone around this room and you know me at all, I get really excited about things that are upbeat and downbeat. I get upset about things. I'm an emotional guy. For me, it's super fun. I mean, I love seeing my picture everywhere. Are there pictures that have been out there that I am embarrassed about? Not particularly. I don't get embarrassed easily. I mean, look at me. How can I get embarrassed? So the way I dress, I also am a superstitious guy. I wear certain ties all the time. You have to realize this job is really stressful. You're dealing with real money. A lot of people who I came up with are not here anymore. On any given day, we're sort of fighting for our lives in a lot of ways to represent our customers right and do the right thing. So the emotions that you see are real. Well, the press used to not be down here. It was not until 2007 that photographers were really allowed on a regular basis to come down to the floor. 2007, 2008 was the financial crisis. The press was here a lot. I'm trying to get a sense of where the market's been trading overnight. Market trades overnight due to headlines, news, any number of things. New York, this room, the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, even though we don't do the volume we once did, is the most significant place that impacts markets all over the world. There was really very few outlets to get yourself onto the floor. You knew a friend and you came down and you started at the bottom and went to the top. So my family has no background in finance. I just happened to be lucky that my path ended up that way. I got a job as a teletypist and I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved the energy here on the floor. And you have to realize it was a bustling, it was like Grand Central Station back then. This room is where I worked actually, and there were thousands of people here. Everything was done with a pad and paper. The floors were full of paper by 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. There were different rungs to go up to get to where you really wanted to go, which was to have a seat. That was your goal. It was an exclusive club. It was a real honor to become a member of the stock exchange. The whole key to this game is communication. There's a lot less of it going on now that we use these computers. I can hide in the corner, send my order flow out, and nobody needs to know what I'm doing. But I tend to be one who likes to interact with another human being. But I've been here through the crash of '87, 9/11, Trump, Brexit, North Korea. I've been here through the financial crisis of '08, '09. So every day here is stressful. Every day is super exciting. To still be a broker on the floor, it's taken a lot of reinventing of myself over the years because the business has changed. I really honor the fact that I've had to rebrand myself and make myself like famous and the most noticed broker in the world. And for me, that's the greatest thing in the world.
Even though the U.S. government is partially shut down, and we're going to have coverage on that in tomorrow's show, national parks have stayed open. They haven't during some previous shutdowns. They are significantly understaffed, and because of that, some parts of them are closed, like the campgrounds of California's Joshua Tree National Park. Their toilet tanks are filled to capacity. Still, parks are accessible to many of those who document their beauty.
I get really bummed when people change photos a lot and edit them. It's like looking at Mother Nature and being like, oh, that's not good enough, let me make you better. We're in Joshua Tree National Park, and it's pretty incredible seeing the Joshua trees. They don't just grow everywhere. They're kind of, in the lower southwest part of the United States. I mean, it just looks like Dr. Seuss everywhere. When we pull up in the big blue truck and we pull the massive camera out of the back, people don't even really know what kind of questions to ask. They're like, do you see something that I don't see? We like to use wet plate photography, and that's a little more complicated. The wet plate process is responsible for creating the first national parks. In the 1800s, the guys, they'd go out on like these exploratory missions, and they'd make these images of the parks, and then they'd work their way back to the East Coast, and people had never seen what was out in the West. And I kind of just wanted to walk in their footsteps if I could, or just feel a little bit of what they did. So that's what really drew me. Okay, drop them in. When you gotta work to make a picture, you gotta really work. You make your own film, we cut the glass plates, we make the cameras, we made every piece in the truck. I made everything with my own hands. It's pretty rad. Our process takes all day to make a single image, so it forces us to sit there and look at the environment. I like how that branch is going over that one and see how the light's changing and really just like soak it in. I just look for things that inspire me. Like the trees, to me, they didn't look like landscape grand things. They had their own individual personality, so just isolating some of them and having some of them blurry, kind of like a portrait. 1, 2, 3. Instead of just drive by, I call it fast food photography. And you're just shooting whatever and then you're gone. I think we got it. The reason I really fell in love with this process is because when we make that plate and we develop it, that's the only one of those that exists. And that idea of having one, and especially in this day and age, it's really neat to me.
One of the most famous American New Year's traditions is when a giant ball drops at midnight over New York City's Times Square. For something not as famous, but maybe more interesting, take the Acorn Drop in Raleigh, North Carolina, a fitting event for the city of the Oaks. There's also a Pickle Drop in Mount Olive, North Carolina, home of a brand that makes pickles, and in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where peep candy is made, well, there's this. Now, this is the part of the show where we usually drop in a corny pun. And honestly, we'd be in a pickle if we didn't. A lot of peeps would drop us complaints if we didn't ring in the new year with new puns. And frankly, just saying them is a ball. They're an auld lang sign that things are back on track. I'm Carl Azus for CNN 10.